Springtrap. William Afton, the man behind the slaughter, the yellow rabbit, purple guy. This is a man of many names. So stop calling him a fucking Huntress clone. Do you enjoy a strong anti-chase power with a very high skill ceiling? Maybe you like map-wide pressure and teleportation? Or maybe you're one of those furries? Well then look no further and welcome to the only Springtrap guide you'll ever need. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Stalkedd. I'm a P100 Ghostface main and a soon-to-be P100 Springtrap. I've been playing DBD since 2016 and have accumulated over 10,000 hours on Killer. And a huge FNAF fan who's been grinding Springtrap ever since minute 1 of his PTB release. But enough introduction, let's get into the guide. Springtrap's power is called Fazbear's Fright and can be boiled down into two main parts, the Fire Axe and the Security Office. The Fire Axe is a throwable axe similar to the Huntress's hatchet that Springtrap can use to cut survivors off during a chase. Think of it as a very high-risk, high-reward one-shot projectile, but with a ton of added utility. For starters, missing a Springtrap axe is not the end of the world. Once the axe is embedded into a wall or a ground after a miss, it leaves behind an area of effect that will trigger Killer Instinct for any survivor who walks through it. Killer Instinct is basically sort of a notification that only the killer can see that lets you know that a survivor's there. Not exactly an aura, but definitely better than nothing. Now, a base kit Springtrap axe area of effect only triggers Killer Instinct. However, there are a ton of add-ons that change what this zone can do. But we'll get into the add-ons later. There's also a bunch of utility if you actually do manage to get the hit, and I'm not just talking about injuring the survivor. Once an axe hits a healthy survivor, the axe becomes embedded inside of them, leaving them broken and incapacitated until either they or a friendly survivor removes the axe from them. Broken meaning that they can't be healed, and incapacitated meaning that they're not able to work on generators, heal, use items, basically anything that a survivor would want to do. And if you as Springtrap get close enough to them, you can actually grab them by the axe handle and perform a jump scare, instantly grabbing them, able to hook them. This is great because it's technically not an attack, so it counters perks like Dead Hard and also counters things like flashlight saves. Basically, if you're able to get a hit with your axe, then you're rewarded with a pretty powerful insta-grab. The axe itself also has a tremendous skill ceiling. While not being super difficult to start out with, the axe can turn into a lethal weapon in any situation when in the right hands. Due to its very heavy weight drop-off, you're able to throw hatchets up in the sky and they come down as orbitals, literally allowing you to hit survivors through walls. Not to mention, the axe itself has a rather small hitbox and can actually go through most things than you'd probably think it could. You'd be surprised how effective the smallest cracks in a wall could actually be, able to make the difference between ending a chase and being looped another 3 minutes, which is a very real possibility because Springtrap doesn't really work the same way most killers do. See, Springtrap can recall the axe whenever he wants, but when it's on his person, he moves 4.4 meters a second, and even slower when he has the axe readied. However, when Springtrap isn't holding onto the axe, he moves slightly faster at 4.6 meters a second. So you really don't want to be holding onto your axe unless you're directly ready to throw it. That 0.2 meters can sometimes feel like 5% haste. But be careful, because Springtrap has this interaction with his power and speed, he doesn't really gain bloodlust the same. See, trying to use your axe, even if you miss, will reset your bloodlust cooldown. Bloodlust is like a sort of helping hand for killers during a chase. If a survivor is looping you too long, then the entity grants you a small speed boost until you either hit the survivor or drop the chase, which I'm sure you can imagine is super helpful. But because we basically have a speed boost on command, the entity's not really as lenient with us. So there is zero reason for you to be holding onto your axe unless you're ready to throw it. So quick recap on the axe. It's a high risk, high reward projectile with a ton of utility, leaving behind an informative area of effect when missing, and afflicting survivors with 2 very strong debuffs when actually hit, all while providing us a very strong insta-grab that nullifies most survivor counterplay. We should not be holding onto it unless we're ready to throw it in that moment. Just remember that throwing the axe is almost like throwing an anvil, and it's going to take us a lot of practice before we can start hitting some really crazy shots. Next up is the Security Office. When Springtrap's the killer, several security doors spawn around the map. These doors are accessible by both the killer and the survivors, but have different effects for both. Springtrap can use these doors to teleport. He can teleport from door to door freely with 0 cooldown. And he's granted a pretty good amount of stealth afterwards too with the undetectable status effect. There are a ton of add-ons that turn the Security Office into an information powerhouse, but a fair bit of information is displayed base kit. See, each door has a marked number on it. Unless you're using specific add-ons, this number doesn't really mean much to you, but it means a ton to the survivors, which we'll cover in a second. It's also worth noting that there's another smaller number where the door handle would be. This number shows which other door is directly linked to the one that we're currently facing, which again we'll get to in a second with the survivors. Just knowing that these doors have no cooldown on the teleport for Springtrap basically means that he has godlike map pressure. But so might the survivors. See, survivors actually have a few more special interactions with the door than Springtrap does. When a survivor first interacts with the door, they're given a camera interface. See, each door has a camera attached to the top, and survivors are able to flip between them to try and find Springtrap. Now, if they do manage to see him and hold the camera over him for a few seconds, he'll be marked for every survivor on the map in white. Springtrap knows when you're watching him though, seeing as his POV is basically blasted with radio static. And if he notices you're on the doors, you should probably run. Conveniently enough, you can run through the doors. See, each door allows you to teleport between them. Doing so will require a short first-person walk through the security office. Just don't let him catch you. The doors aren't as OP for survivors as they are for Springtrap though, because there is a power mechanic. See, the doors have a set battery life, and any second spent on cameras drains that battery life just as it would in Five Nights at Freddy's. Teleporting between doors also takes a huge chunk of battery life. Now, if the battery dies, it's not the end of the world because it will recharge. However, for that duration, all doors are disabled for survivors, but not for Springtrap. So a dead battery will only lock survivors and survivor teammates out of the doors, not Springtrap. So in summary, several security doors spawn throughout the map, giving Springtrap map-wide teleportation. Map-wide teleportation that doubles 4 survivors, all while giving them tools to scout and track Springtrap throughout the game. If a survivor and Springtrap are moving through the same door at the same time, they're gonna get grabbed. Now that you understand how both sides of his power work, there is one last intricacy that I have to point out. See, remember how I said you could leave the fire axe behind to move slightly faster? Well, if you leave it behind and embedded it in a door, that door is going to be shut down for the duration of your axe's AoE, which granted is only a few seconds, but it's definitely a useful tip. Say you're trying to secure a kill on a hooked survivor, or trying to stop survivors from TPing to a door near an exit gate. Well, leaving your axe in that door would not only provide you with a small speed boost, but also give you a few seconds window where survivors aren't able to teleport there. You're going to be leaving your axe behind a lot on Springtrap because you're going to want to take full advantage of that mobility. So if you're near a door, there's no reason not to leave your axe embedded in the door. I can't tell you how many times it's saved my life blocking off a door near a completed gen that would have saved survivors the game. Because on a killer like Springtrap, every second counts. And so do his add-ons. I'm not joking when I say that I think Springtrap has the most diverse add-ons out of any killer in Dead by Daylight. Information, he's got it. Stealth, he's got it. Anti-heal, he's got that too. Speed, got that as well. Confusion? Sure, why not? Fuck it, just give him Blood Favor. Or we could just straight up let him throw the hatchet through the doors. Set up a clutch endgame build. Play the clown! Or just have Brutal Strength. His best add-ons in no particular order are Iridescent Remnant, Endo CPU, Bonnie's Guitar Strings, Purple Guide Drawing, Security Guard's Badge, and Streamers. Now, I would say either Bonnie's Guitar Strings or Security Guard's Badge are his strongest add-ons. And Behavior would say that too, because you can't use them together. Basically, Bonnie's Guitar Strings provides a ton of information and Security Guard's Badge provides a ton of stealth, which was basically impossible to play against on the playtest, so they made it so that Bonnie's completely nullifies the effects of Security Guard's Badge. Either way, you're probably going to want to use at least one or the other of these. Personally, I prefer Bonnie's Guitar Strings for the information, and I pair it with Streamers to get to those progress gens faster. Security Badge also goes well with Streamers, but could also pair really nicely with something like Fazcoin if you wanted to lean heavier into the stealth. But that's about it for the add-ons. Now, just as Springtrap has a huge variety in his add-ons, you could do a ton with perks on him. However, he already has so much baked into his kit, I tend to lean more towards information or gen regression, and not so much things like stealth or chase perks. But in this video, I'll give you guys 3 builds: a beginner build for a complete noob, a stealth build, and what I believe to be his strongest build. When I say new build, I'm only talking about using default perks or perks given by Springtrap. So don't stress it if you don't own every killer and have every meta perk. So for add-ons, I would recommend Bonnie's Guitar Strings and Streamers. This way we can track down gens and TP to them fairly quickly. The build itself consists of Phantom Fear and Bitter Murmur, 2 perks that are going to be giving us survivors' auras and a ton of information. Phantom Fear has the survivors scream and reveal their aura to you so long as they see you within your terror radius once per minute. It is quite literally a survivor's aura once every minute. It doesn't really get much more helpful than that. Bitter Murmur activates every time a generator pops, showing you the auras of survivors near that completed generator for a few seconds. And when the last gen pops, you see all survivors' aura. We're also adding in No Holds Barred, or Deadlock for those of you who own Pinhead. This perk was recently added into the default perk pool, but it works wonders. Similar to Bitter Murmur, it's going to proc every single time a generator is completed, blocking off the next most progressed gen for quite a lengthy duration. And last but not least, no one escapes death. a perk that activates once all gens are completed. You're given a speed boost, which is going to make you even faster if you're not holding onto your axe. And all survivors are going to be one shot, so long as you hit them with a basic attack, not your axe. But remember, we weren't really holding onto that anyways. Now, this perk does take the shape of a hex totem, which survivors can break, and if they break it, this perk will be disabled. But with Bitter Murmur and Deadlock popping after every gen that gets completed, who even knows if we'll make it to the end game? Remember, we can just teleport directly to either survivors or the next most completed gen. And when all gens are completed, we have all survivors' auras to teleport to with our No One Escapes death. Hopefully you're starting to see just how much synergy there is in this build. Now, the next two builds I'm going to go a little bit faster on because I'm assuming the people who are using them are a little bit more advanced if they have other killer's perks. The stealth build consists of the add-ons Faz Coin and Security Badge, with the perks Eruption, Unforeseen, Plaything, or Fortune's Fool if you don't have Pinhead, and Nowhere to Hide. Basically, Faz Coin and Unforeseen are going to add fake terror radiuses throughout the map, all while we move through with Undetectable. Other good perks I would recommend for this build are Alien Instinct for even more stealth, or Dark Devotion for a third terror radius to really confuse survivors. Next up is what I believe to be Springtrap's strongest build that has a good mix of gen regression and information. The classic Bonnie's Guitar Strings and Streamer's add-on combo with Lethal Pursuer, Phantom Fear, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and Jolt. I believe this build has all of Springtrap's weaknesses covered, the biggest of which being a lack of early game pressure. I've actually done a video on this build, and if you want to know more, I'll leave a link to it down in the description. Just remember that you can't use the axe to proc Surge, and it has to be a basic attack. But you could totally swap out any perk in here for anything that you deem more fitting, say Eruption or Thrilling Tremors. Honestly, you can't even really cover all of Springtrap's builds in one video because he just has so many. So if you want to check out more interesting Springtrap builds, I'd highly recommend looking into my channel. There is no shortage of dumb Springtrap builds for you to test out here. That's basically it for the builds, but just remember, whatever works for you works for you. These builds are just a starting point. Feel free to experiment with a variety of different kinds of builds and to share those experiments in the comment section, so I can steal them for a video. Now, unlike my Ghostface tutorial, the cosmetics don't really play a huge part in Springtrap gameplay. I guess if you wanted to look at it from a competitive angle, Glitch Trap's probably his best skin because there's no voice lines. I do want to make a follow-up tips and tricks video, so if there are any other tips and tricks that I left out in this video, be sure to let me know down in the comment section, and be sure to leave a like if even one thing in this video helped you out. Subscribe for more Springtrap videos, and be sure to check me out on Twitch if you want to watch me film them live. Have a great day.